Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Carnegie Endowment for International Peace to have selected such a great man and great leader for this next phase of development and success. Burns is one of my heroes. He's the quiet man and a quiet diplomat. His most secure diplomat I know does not need his pictures everywhere and his quotes everywhere because he knows who he is, who knows who we are, he knows also what is needed. It's a great honor to be here this evening to present the 2015 Nunn-Lugar Award for promoting nuclear security to two extraordinary individuals, the Right Honorable Lord Desmond Brown of Ladyton and His Excellency Ambassador Igor Ivanov. This award was established to recognize individuals who have dedicated their careers to advancing the cause of nuclear security and hence the cause of peace. Andrew Carnegie dedicated much of his philanthropy and advocacy to the goal of ending global conflict. Indeed, he could imagine no more important pursuit, having labeled war, and I quote, the foulest blot that has ever disgraced the earth. End of the quote. His ambition to eradicate war drove him to found Carnegie Corporation of New York, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and the Carnegie Council of Ethics in International Affairs, among many other sister institutions. It was Andrew Carnegie who advocated that he who dies rich dies disgraced, a dictum that has become the moral imperative behind much of modern philanthropy. It certainly informed the mandate he gave to Carnegie Corporation of New York, which he endowed with the great bulk of his fortune. Andrew Carnegie wanted the organizations and institutions he created to do real and permanent good in the world. At the corporation, our efforts to advance international peace and security are rooted in that idea. During the past 25 years, the corporation has sought to address the nuclear threat through support of projects such as the Carnegie Commission of Preventing Deadly Conflict in the 1990s, to more recent support Track 2 diplomacy, the funding programs and projects leading to the landmark Nunn-Lugar Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, which since its establishment in 1991 has assisted in the deactivation of more than 7,600 strategic nuclear warheads. Let me repeat again, 7,600 strategic nuclear warheads. The Cooperative Threat Reduction Program was named for Senators Sam Nunn and Richard Lugar, who were also the inaugural recipients and namesakers of the Nunn-Lugar Award for promoting nuclear security. Both Senators Nunn and Lugar have dedicated much of their remarkable careers to the cause of nuclear non-proliferation and have been paragons of nonpartisanship in and now out of the Senate. Sam Nunn, former trustee of Carnegie Corporation of New York, is the co-chairman and chief executive officer of the Nuclear Threat Initiative, which enjoys corporation support. And Richard Lugar serves on its board of directors. He has also continued his non-proliferation work as president of Lugar Center, which is dedicated to proposing solutions to global problems that will define the 21st century. Through their efforts to further the work of NTI, whose mission is, in part, focuses on strengthening global security, and I quote, by reducing the risk of use and preventing the spread of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. They have contributed immensely and invaluably to the cause of international peace. It's a great honor to me and privilege to introduce these two outstanding statesmen, Sam Nunn and Richard Lugar.
Thank you very much, Vartan Gregorian and Bill Burns and your colleagues from the Carnegie Corporation as well as the Carnegie Endowment for this very, very special evening. I'm delighted to be here tonight with my friend and trusted partner, Dick Lugar, to honor two outstanding leaders, Des Brown and Igor Ivanov. I think that most folks in this audience would agree that General Omar Bradley's statement many years ago is even more accurate today, unfortunately. Ours is a world, and I quote, ours is a world of nuclear giants and ethical infants. If we continue to develop our technology without wisdom and prudence, our servant may prove to be our executioner, end quote. Igor and Des share a common dedication to working to reduce the threats of weapons for mass destruction in an increasingly dangerous world. I'm doubly honored that this award this evening bears the name of Nunn-Lugar. People in many parts of the world, particularly in the former Soviet Union over the last 25 years, have concluded that my last name is Lugar and that Dick's first name is Nunn. But perhaps the Ivanov-Brown team can avoid that peril. In times of challenge and danger, our Carnegie host could not have chosen two more outstanding leaders. And I think it's significant that we have two people receiving this award, because I think you're sending a strong signal that peace requires partnerships. It's not a solo mission. By choosing both Igor and Des, you have skillfully avoided the dilemma that confronted President Abraham Lincoln when he was visited many years ago by two hat makers, each of whom brought the president a hat that they had made as a gift for him. After the two presentations, both hatters stood nervously back, waiting for President Lincoln, to indicate his preference. Lincoln looked over the two hats very carefully and then remarked with great gravity, "Gentlemen, they mutually excel each other." So Des and Igor, you mutually excel each other. And the world is fortunate that you are friends and that you are partners. My assignment and honor is to read the citation presented to Igor, but let me first make three very brief points as my personal preamble. Number one, Igor is guided by his convictions and principles and has worked courageously in support of a productive and mutually beneficial U.S., Russian, and European partnership in periods of tension as well as periods of constructive engagement. Number two, Igor is an enormously skillful diplomat who is always working to maintain an open dialogue and always striving for constructive solutions and common ground. Number three, Igor is creative and committed to finding a path forward. And most importantly today, he inspires and he creates space for many others in Russia, as well as the United States and Europe, to follow his example. Thank you, Igor, for your courage, your leadership, your example, and your outstanding commitment to making the world a better place and a safer place. And now the most important part of my assignment, the proclamation and the award. The proclamation reads as follows. A historian by training, Igor Sergeyevich Ivanov is a distinguished Russian diplomat and a foreign policy specialist of international standing. As Minister of Foreign Affairs from 1998 to 2004, and as Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation from 2004 to 2007, Ambassador Ivanov has dedicated his career to seeking peaceful resolutions to global conflicts and strengthening Russia's relationship with the United States and the West. Holding the rank of Ambassador Extraordinary, he took part in the work of several UN General Assemblies and many national and international conferences, and in particular, he co-chaired the Bosnian settlement talks in Dayton, Ohio. From 1991 to 1993, he represented the Soviet Union and then Russia as ambassador to Spain. Together with Sam Nunn and Wolfgang Ischinger, Ambassador Ivanov co-chaired the Euro-Atlantic Security Initiative, which warned over 2 years ago that in absence of a new military and political strategy for the Euro-Atlantic region, there was a risk that stability would weaken and security would break down. Sadly, these dire warnings have now become a reality as Europe is facing its most serious and deadly crisis in decades through the conflict in Ukraine. In a recent article, Ambassador Ivanov again joined Lloyd, Des Brown, and Senator Nunn in arguing that, quote, from that article that all three engaged in, quote, "No security architecture, old or new, can succeed without leaders who are committed to addressing and resolving core issues. No process or structure, however elegantly designed, can substitute for bold political leadership and agreement on shared goals." Continued quote. Today, however, one cannot escape the conclusion that the Euro-Atlantic region's existing security architecture is not up to the task of resolving the current crisis and increasing cooperation and stability in the region, end quote. Ambassador Ivanov has dedicated his life and his career to building a safer, more secure, and integrated international community, of which Russia is an integral part. While this vision remains a work in progress, for his dedication, for his leadership, and his deeds toward this aim, it is my great honor to present the second Nunn-Lugar Award for promoting nuclear security to Igor Ivanov. Igor, please join me.
This brown. This is Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the beginning of 90s, when Senator Nunn and Senator Lugar announced their ambitious cooperative threat reduction initiative, I served as a Russian ambassador to Spain. At that time, I couldn't even imagine that quarter of a century later, I would stand at the same podium with these legendary politicians, and that I would receive from the hands of Sam Nunn an award named after him. How can we deny the possibility of miracles after that? I'd like to express my deep gratitude to Mr. Grigoryan, to Jessica Matthews, to Bill Burns for their decision to consider me for this prestigious award. For me personally, this award has a lot of symbolic meaning. We all know too well that the Russian-American relations go through a difficult stage these days. It's not the right time and the right place to dwell on how we have reached this point. One can only express regret that instead of jointly celebrating our common victory in the Second World War and uniting our efforts in fighting common threats, we have to witness our cooperation declining further and further. Having said that, I absolutely sure in one thing. Without an active cooperation of our two nations, no safe and stable world order is feasible. Back in early 90s, the situation in the world was not easy either. The Nunn-Lugar initiative got not only active supporters, but serious opponents as well, both in the United States and in the Soviet Union. But the two statements had enough political will and courage to continue their struggle. Today, all of us who understand the importance of the Russian-American relations for international stability have to do everything they can to resume a constructive dialogue between our two countries. It is this spirit that I accept the award. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly a great evening. for all of us who have great hopes for the world in which we live and are prepared really to think about the type of leadership that will be required. I'm excited that Vartan Gregorian started the program, that Bill Burns was here once again as really the epitome of a veteran diplomat who has meant so much to our country and to the world. And of course, especially pleased to be with my partner, my very dear friend, Sam Nunn. We are remembering that great night at The Hague in 1992, about 3 years ago, in which Vartan Gregorian introduced the Nunn-Lugar Award. We were in front of an international group of judicial people who were intrigued by the whole proposition. It had been a very difficult day for my partner, Sam, because apparently some Nazi armaments or something of that sort left over from World War II had exploded on the airport there as he came in. I had more difficult problems in Chicago because essentially on that day the computers went down and there were hundreds of angry people unable to get their tickets and find places. But somehow the Nunn-Lugar mystery worked its way through to The Hague and to a glorious night, and now to this second awarding of the Nunn-Lugar Prize to two men who I have treasured because they are members of Sam's board over the Nuclear Threat Initiative, as well as other times in which we get together. And they really do express the courage, not just of persons who have been leaders in their nations, but really in terms of the world. And that does take courage, without becoming explicit about all the differences that we now have. Let me just say that I'm so pleased to be a part of this ceremony this evening, because I remember vividly the fact that Sam and I were very fortunate in the last days of the Senate session in 1991 to get the Nunn-Lugar Cooperative Threat Reduction across the finish line, and we were assisted greatly by Ash Carter, who came from the Belfer Center at Harvard in that day with a white paper, and we, in a bipartisan way, had invited senators from both parties to a breakfast so we could all get religion together, literally. We did not succeed in getting unanimous religion together on the Senate floor. There were, if you can imagine such things, the senators arising and saying, not a dime for the Russians, not a dime for us. They made their own problems and so forth. But nevertheless, calmer, cooler heads prevailed and continued to have to do so, as an appropriation was required every single year with all sorts of amendments and provisos offering advice as to how all this was to occur. But it did happen. It continues to happen. And what a glorious occasion this is. So with those thoughts in mind, I want to give this tribute that's been prepared for a very fine winner of the award. And let me just say simply, trained as a solicitor and called to the Scottish Bar in 1993, the Right Honorable Lord Desmond Brown of Ladyton has been a tireless proponent of domestic and of international peace and security since he was first elected as a member of the British Parliament in 1997. As an MP over the next 13 years, Lord Brown assumed positions of increasing responsibility, culminating in his appointment as Minister of State for Northern Ireland. And after the United Kingdom's 2001 general election, Lord Brown progressed through several high-level positions before joining the Cabinet in 2005 as Chief Secretary of the Treasury and in 2006 as Secretary of State for Defense, a position he held while also serving as Secretary of State for Scotland. In 2008, he returned to the backbenches of Parliament and was appointed as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy to Sri Lanka. Granted a life peerage in the House of Lords in 2010, Lord Brown declared that during his maiden speech to that body, and I quote, "The existence of nuclear weapons, the security challenges they pose, and the risk of their proliferation are among the greatest threats that the world faces. I intend to devote myself to the advancement of multilateral nuclear disarmament, improvement of the non-proliferation regime, and improved nuclear security," end of quote. And backing up his words with deeds, Lord Brown became the convener of the top-level group of parliamentarians for multilateral nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, a cross-party group of senior current and former British officials who share his belief in the critical importance of this cause. Since its inception in 2012, Lord Brown has also been the convener of the European Leadership Network, which engages former and emerging European leaders to develop collaborative European capacity to address pressing foreign defense and security policy challenges. In 2014, he became the vice chairman of the Nuclear Threat Initiative, whose mission is to strengthen global security by reducing the risk and use and preventing the spread of weapons of mass destruction. For his vision, for his leadership, and for his deeds in support of a safer and more secure world, it is truly a great honor to present the second Nunn-Lugar Award for promoting nuclear security to Des Brown.